Hey everyone, I'm Alex, one of the founders of Judgment. In this demo, I'm going to be going over an agent cookbook where we're going to run over how to use Judge Eval, which is Judgment Labs' evaluation package, to benchmark the performance of an agent that I've just created. So I'm going to run this agent, and you'll see that this agent is essentially a very basic travel agent. This allows us to essentially go somewhere in the world and get an itinerary for our trip. So let's say that we're going to go to Paris, and let's say that we're going there for like 1 week. So, we're going ahead and saving this, and you can see that in this agent, what we're doing is we're going to run this thing, and it researches a destination, and then it creates a corresponding travel plan. Now, I've just implemented this using some pretty basic RAG and agent capabilities. So for example, in the research, the agent is allowed to basically determine which tools it should use, which it has access to a bunch of these tools. And essentially the tools that it has this web searching tool, and we're using Tavily for this, and also it has access to a vector DB. So we're using ChromaDB for this with some OpenAI embeddings, and we can populate it. You can see that I've populated it with some sample information, and we're just going to see how well this agent does. So you can see that this agent has a ton of tools. It can research different attractions, it can research different hotels that it wants to go to, and it will essentially execute a plan for an itinerary. Now, our goal with this is that we want to observe this with judgment, and we want to be able to evaluate how good this agent performs with a set of metrics. Now, these metrics are publicly available in Judgment. There's over 10 metrics that you can choose from, and you can even write your own for your own use cases. But in this demo, I'm going to be interested in two things. So for example, number one is that when we're looking at all these search functionalities, we want to see whether or not basically what we're searching for is relevant to what we actually want to search for. Because maybe this Tavily search thing just isn't really giving us any relevant information. So what we're going to do is use the answer relevancy score, and all you have to do is put an async evaluation inside of your execution. This is not going to block the performance of your workflow. This is essentially going to use an LM as a judge in order to answer this question that we're interested in, which is the Tavily search giving us everything relevant that we actually care about? And so we're going to do this on the other ones like get flights, very similar. We're just wanting to make sure that it all works in terms of the Tavily giving us what we want. Also, you might notice that we're using the judgment decorators. The only thing that you need to do to slap a trace on top of your things is to add this judgment decorator with the S-band type of your choice that will show up on the UI, and we'll look over that. So you can see, like, for these tools, for the agent, we're labeling it with tool. For the retriever modules inside of the vector DB, we're going to call it retriever. And for our base functions that we know we're going to run, we'll just call it function. And then inside of our main function over here, which is the generation of the itinerary, you just have to wrap the execution of your normal code with a context manager, which is pretty simple. So that's how Judgment executes. And one more thing is that Judgment has so many different metrics. Personally, I think a really cool one is faithfulness. And so what faithfulness measures is essentially hallucination. We can detect whether or not the model response contains any information that is factually contradicting what we know to be the ground truth. So in this scenario, we have two forms of ground truth. One is this vector DB that we've already populated, and in this case, you can adapt this to whatever your ground truth is, but we have a vector DB, and we also have the ground truth from whatever the web search is doing. So we just have to basically slot in those retrieval contexts into here. We log that we're using the faithfulness score, and there are docs to go along with this which detail what each score is good at and what you might want to use it for. And all we have to do is log the results out to Judgment, and so you can see that the UX integration is quite standard. You just have to add one line of code per function that you want to trace, and one line of code determining per evaluation. So once you get a hang of this, it's actually pretty simple to implement, and let's see how this performs now. So we can see now that our agent has finished its planning stages and generation. I've printed out this trace, but the cool thing is that we basically can go to the Judgment sort of interface and take a look at how this does. So great, let's refresh this page. And our travel agent demo is ready. So you can see this is because when we are executing our trace, we wrap this in the travel agent demo project name, and therefore back on the traces page, we can see the travel agent demo. So we can go here and we can see the latency on this. So let's click this individual trace and see how it executed. And we can see that everything is running nicely. This is the same trace interface that you might see from alternatives such as Langfuse, which are observability tools, but the nice addition that you get here is evaluations on top of it. This is really cool. We can see that all of the spans are correctly labeled with their corresponding latencies. We can also keep track of things like the direct inputs and outputs to each function. And if we do make LLM calls, such as this OpenAI call here, we can also see how many tokens that we use, so we can track usage as well. Now, you can see that when we are applying these evaluations, it gives us a score, it gives us a reason, and so we can see how well each thing is performing. Now, you can actually sort of like format this as tests inside of your evaluations by setting a threshold. So you might have noticed that back in the code, we set a threshold for some of our evaluations down here. In this case, all of our metrics are between 0 and 1, where 1 is better, so we just set the threshold to 0.5. And back on the UI, you can see that every one of these tests is passing, so we know that this thing is operating properly. Great. What if we wanted to dig into why a test case executes properly or not properly? Let's go into one of these examples. So maybe we want to check the faithfulness. Let's see whether or not our thing is hallucinating. So we wait for this page to load, and you can see we get this entire sort of observability view into what our LLM is looking at, and we get a nice little short explanation here for our RAG quality. Faithfulness, there are no contradictions, which means that there are no hallucinations here, which is great. And so if this were 0 or 0.25 below our threshold, this would flag as red and come up with a list of the contradictions that were present. So this gives you a pretty good wrap up of how to use the evaluation toolkit inside of Judgment on top of your live production workflows to get an idea of exactly how well your systems are operating, and you can really slap any evaluation that you want. Again, we offer over 10 research-backed metrics that you can apply to your systems today, but you can even code in special custom metrics super easily. Hope that you enjoyed this demo, and let us know what you think.